Hare Krishna. All
Hare
glories to
Krishna.
the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Haribol.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, the Founder-Ācārya of the Krishna Consciousness movement, and our Diksha and Siksha Guru.
Good to see you.
We have begun these classes on Krishna consciousness philosophy through our group, the Prabhupada Disciples Association. This association has a platform based on three principles. One, that we use the unadulterated books. That means books that were authorized by Prabhupada during his physical presence to be published. And in the case, here we have, I just got a case of these Bhagavad-gītas, these ones, that are the authorized versions of the 1972 edition of the Macmillan Bhagavad-gītā. So not only the Bhagavad-gītā, but if you could see behind me, I just purchased a new set of the Bhagavatam's 30 volumes for my library. And I also, I hate to speak about myself, but I also got a new set of Chaitanya Charitamritas as well, because we've come to learn that the books of Srila Prabhupada, the original versions, are not really readily available anymore in print. That it appears that different organizations that have been printing them are running out of them. And for whatever reason, they're not, excuse me, they're not able to reprint them. So we are, of course, planning to move forward with the printing of the books step by step as part of our agenda with the Prabhupada Disciples Association. So those books will include Sri Upanishad, Easy Journey to Other Planets, and the Bhagavad-gītā, and the Nectar of Devotion. So I'll give more information to our membership moving forward so that you can participate in the printing of these books for worldwide distribution. One of our members in Hamilton here has a very, very interesting story about how Krishna arranged for him to meet Hansaduta Prabhu. And for those who aren't aware of him, he was the original trustee appointed by one of the original trustees appointed by Prabhupada during his personal presence, to administer the activities of the BBT. And he has all kinds of books that he did publish during his presence out of Singapore. I actually I'll have to bring them to the next class. I'll show all of you some of them. There was he has a 1-volume edition of Srimad Bhagavatam and a 1-volume edition of Chaitanya Charitamrita. They're thick black books. And then he also made a small set of Srimad Bhagavatams. They're little black ones. I wish I had my set. They were a lovely set. I remember getting them in Toronto when I was the president. And we engaged in distributing all the books that we got from him as well. So he, before his passing away, he passed away a few years ago. And I know there's a lot of, if you research the history of the BBT, you'll find out all kinds of information on these different organizations that are claiming to be representing the BBT, and they're also claiming to have the rights to print or publish Prabhupada's books. But they're actually, in our particular case, Abhimanyu, Prabhu, who is a devotee from Russia, was given the authorization to from Hansaduta to become a BBT trustee, and he is therefore moving ahead. And we now have already reproduced this particular edition. We've already reproduced it, all the files, as a perfect replica of the 72 Macmillan version of the Gita. So that's already done. And then along with that, we're working forward to publish the Srimad Bhagavatam, the original 3 volumes that Prabhupada brought from India, the 62 version, the 64 version, and 65 version of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is really my favorite version of the Srimad Bhagavatam, totally unedited and quite revealing because of its purity of force. So this is some information before we start the class. And I wanted to thank everybody for inviting people to the Prabhupada Disciples Association on Facebook. If you use that media, please let people know about our group, our Facebook group, Prabhupada Disciples Association. And it is a group page that gives all kinds of great quotes and information on Prabhupada and his different letters and lectures and other quotes and passages and information on what we're about and what we're doing. We have 3 basic rules for participation. They are: we use the unadulterated books as devotees of Srila Prabhupada, and we also do not associate with members of the Gaudiya Math because of Prabhupada's instructions to us to respect and honor them, but at the same time not to be involved with their activities. And the third thing is we do not promote the ISKCON or any other guru as a Diksha guru, or for that matter, Siksha guru, knowing that Prabhupada is the Jagat guru for the modern world. And this is very important because understanding Prabhupada's position as guru is a key for each one of us to get out of this material world. That complete focus on him, his instructions, his books, his lectures, his tapes. This is the way to illuminate the path back to Godhead. It's very, very important for everyone to understand that. And for those of us who have been devotees for many years, and realize that it's important for us to preserve that understanding so that it will preserve Prabhupada's legacy moving into the future, not become scattered by all kinds of different people with different motives than the motive of becoming God conscious. That's specifically the method by which one can is by accepting Prabhupada as the pure devotee of Krishna and the transparent via media for him. So Krishna, he takes over the senses of the pure devotee. It's called Hrishikesha, the master of the senses, and controls the activities of the spiritual master and uses him as a via media, because we need that. It's a portal. It's a portal to back to the spiritual world. And when you read the books, when you read them carefully, each individual devotee gets that realization of what a great gift has been given to us by Srila Prabhupada. It's a fantastic opportunity in this time of history to have this chance, this beautiful chance to go back home, back to Godhead by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So again, we want to thank everybody for supporting our work, all of our work. We're a team and moving forward. In the association online on Facebook, we have 600 members now. That's not very many, but in that group, but it's growing by about 100 people per week now who are requesting to be members of the Prabhupada Disciples Association. They're requesting it. This is what we find very encouraging, because this type of growth means we're getting quality people that are interested in following Srila Prabhupada and following his teachings in association with other like-minded people. So congratulations to all of you who are recommending people to join the group. And when you join that group, we also have a membership. So that membership will automatically, if they fill in the membership form, that automatically gets them on our invitation to the classes. So it goes into the database, and so people can join us for these live classes, which are being streamed, I believe, and also being saved on our Prabhupada TV channel that we're still in the process of putting together, but is coming. There's quite a bit of work behind it, but it is in progress. And I know that some of you are interested in participating. I had a chat with our godbrother, Jiva Goswami, and he is interested in doing a broadcast of the Nectar of Devotion. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, so that we're adding that into our programming as well. So all these things are going on, and this is all by the grace of Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada. So that's enough for the introduction this morning, and we'll move forward with the Jaya Radha Madhava prayers, and then the Bhagavad-gītā class with His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. Hari Hari Bol.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yasoda-nandana Brajajana-ranjana Yasoda-nandana Brajajana-ranjana Yamuna-tira-vanachari Yamuna-tira-vanachari Jaya Radha-Madhava Punya-Bihari Gopi-jana-vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi-jana-vallabha Girivaradhari Yasoda-nandana Brajajana-ranjana Yasoda-nandana Brajajana-ranjana Yamuna-tira-vanachari Yamuna-tira-vanachari Jaya Radha-Madhava Punya-Bihari Jaya Radha-Madhava Punya-Bihari Jai Prabhupāda Kirtan Swami Prabhupāda Jai Nanda-koti Vaishnava Jai Rama-ācārya Sri Haridas Thakur Jai Names of the whole Sri Krishna Sri Radha Krishna Bhogavna Samkanda Radha Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Dwarka Dham ki jai, Swami Bhaktivedanta ki jai. All glories to that. All glories to that. Thank you very much.
Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya-manobhishtam Stapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Raghunathan Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Viśvakarmā E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanyam Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We will be reading from Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, original 1972 Macmillan edition, the non-adulterated version. We are actually on chapter 7, text number 5. All translations, synonyms, and purports and commentaries by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Apareyam mitastvanyam prakritim viddime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat apara inferior iyam this itaha besides this to but anyam another prakritim energy vidhi just try to understand me my param superior jiva bhutam the living entities mahabahu almighty armed one yaya by whom idam this daryate being utilized or exploited jagat the material world. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Besides this inferior nature, Almighty Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind, which are all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. Purport by His Divine Grace. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. And it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful, as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows: 10:87-30. Aparimita drubas tanubrutu yadi saravagatas tarahim nasashyati niyamno dhruva netarata ajani yanmayam taravimuchya niyantri bhavet samam manujanatam yadamatam matadushtaya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monastic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually misleading themselves and others. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Miritam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Nama Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhaktisiddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatihi Visheshataham Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanandam Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, our spiritual master, who has opened our eyes from the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. So this is a very important verse from Bhagavad-gītā. Krishna is following up on text number 4, in which he has given the description of the 8 separate material energies. We saw how Srila Prabhupada described in the previous verse the explanation of the 3 Vishnus, the different Purusha incarnations, how the material world is created, how it is maintained, how the living entities come in. Prabhupada described the meaning of the false ego, and in this particular text, he also expands on this point on page number 370. In the Katha Upanishad, it is described, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetapanam eko bahunam yuvidadati kaman. This is the difference between God, Krishna, and the living entities, that both of them are eternal. Both the living entity and the Supreme Lord Krishna are eternal. But Krishna eko bahunam yuvidadati kaman. He provides for all living entities. Only God can provide for all living entities. He has that power. We do not. Although we are eternal, he is also eternal. We do not have the power to provide for everybody. And here, Prabhupada very nicely describes these living entities are a superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. A little further, Prabhupada describes what is that false ego. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. So this is a very important point because we see all over the world, different nations, different communities, different parties are fighting over property. They're fighting over control of property, over land, over different areas, all under the illusion that this is mine or this belongs to my community or my country or my nation. No, everything belongs to God. We see in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā at the end, our Lord Krishna described Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarva Bhutanam Yatmamam Shantim Richati. That great personalities have achieved complete peace because they've understood 3 things. Very simple. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam. That God is the enjoyer of all of our activities. Everything should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. Next, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He is the controller. He is the owner of everything. Everybody has seen in the Sri Upanishad in the beginning, Ishavasyamidam Sarvam. Everything is controlled by the Isha, the controller, Krishna. And the 3rd point, Suridam Sarvabhutana, that Krishna is the friend of all living entities. This is what we were discussing in the last class, that Krishna is within the heart of every living entity. Suridam Sarvabhutana. And what happened if one understands this? Yatvamam Shantim Richati. One will attain happiness. One will attain peace. But the false ego has to be under control. If one thinks this is mine and I'm the enjoyer and I'm the doer, in Sanskrit it's called kartaham iti manyati. Person is thinking, I'm the doer, I'm the controller. This is Maya, illusion. Big illusion. And this illusion is what binds the living entity to the material world. In order to be liberated from this, Prabhupada explains his actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. So this is a very important point because we see in India, all over the world, people who are seeking some spiritual life, there are many times fall under the illusion of this Mayavadi philosophy. Very, very troublesome philosophy. As a matter of fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say, Mayavadi oi Krishna aparadi, that those who are Mayavadi, the impersonalists, they are offenders at the lotus feet of Krishna. So that's why we have to be very careful when we study this philosophy to clearly understand Srila Prabhupada's statements. In 1977, I had the good fortune of spending a little time with Srila Prabhupada. I was delegated with the service of massaging his legs and his feet for 2 weeks in May. So several nights, because at that time I had been requested by Srila Prabhupada to teach in a Gurukul in Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada asked me, so how do you teach over there? What do you teach? Prabhupada says, you explain to me what you're teaching. I said, well, we read your books, Srila Prabhupada, with the students, and we read the text. We read each word for word. We read the translation, and we read the purport. And the older students, they take notes. Every time that there is a Sanskrit verse or Bengali verse or several Sanskrit words together, they make a note. Every time that there's an analogy, they make a note. And they basically analyze all the various points in your purports and make clear notes. And Prabhupada was very pleased with that. He says, all my students, they should study the books like that. Very detailed study. Every word should be carefully studied. Of course, in those days, we did not have computers and all the search engines. Although computers were available by 1977, we didn't have the search engines to look at all the different quotes of so many things. So it's a situation that Prabhupada wanted the devotees to very carefully analyze and study the books. There is reading, and then there's studying. Unfortunately, now what we have is people have a very short time of attention, very short span of attention. If one is serious about spiritual life, he must read and study these books. Otherwise, it is too easy to be misled by nonsensical philosophy. Just the other day, some devotee sent me a quote of a conversation with Srila Prabhupada, because there was some discussion on the internet by some scholars or pseudo-scholars, so-called scholars, where they were criticizing Srila Prabhupada for his various social views about women and social views about the universe and social views about not going to the moon, so many different controversial statements by Srila Prabhupada. And these individuals were of the opinion that Prabhupada was mistaken, that he was basically speaking from his conditioning, from his upbringing in India and Calcutta under British schools and all of these things. So this conversation is very revealing. This is from a morning walk in Mayapur, India, on March 16, 1976. Disciple, Srila Prabhupada, what are the qualifications of a perfect leader? Prabhupada, no mistake, no illusion, no cheating, no imperfection. Anyone who commits mistake is illusion, he is a cheater and imperfect. He cannot lead. Prabhupada, if you think your leader is mistaken, then you are mistaken. Prabhupada laughed. In other words, the Acharya, the pure devotee, receives direct direction from Krishna. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Antya Lila, chapter 5, there is a statement in one purport where Srila Prabhupada describes how the spiritual master receives direct instruction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not that Prabhupada has to research some academic papers or some PhD book or no. Prabhupada is in direct touch with Krishna, and whatever he says has to be understood to be dictated by Krishna himself. There was a conversation in New York in 1976 when one reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, well, how do you know whom to choose for whatever position? So one disciple stated, well, you have to understand when we make a decision, it's due to intelligence, some kind of explanation like that. Prabhupada says, no, Krishna will tell the devotee directly. This is the highest stage of a pure devotee. Uttam Mahabhagavat. Not that we are to think that Prabhupada was mistaken in his various views and he was okay, he was perfect when he was speaking about spiritual life. Not like that. That is not the proper understanding. Because if one thinks like that, then this is finding fault with the Acharya. Acharyambam vijaniyan navamanina karichit. Krishna says in 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, how the Acharya is my very self. And one should never be envious of the Acharya. One should never neglect the Acharya, the bona fide Acharya, the self-realized Acharya, the liberated Acharya, not a show bottle self-appointed Acharya or some kind of voted-in political Acharya. That is not the standard. The fully realized Acharya, that is what Prabhupada is talking about. Nambartya buddhya suyita. One should never think that he's an ordinary man. Never. If one thinks, oh, Prabhupada was conditioned by his upbringing and he was conditioned by his original schools in Calcutta, this is nonsense. This is offensive. Very offensive. We see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is one verse in the Madhya Lila, Vaishnavira Kriya Nabujaya, that the activities of a perfect Vaishnava, of a pure devotee Vaishnava, can never be understood by anybody. Not that somebody think, oh, I'm very intelligent, I'm a PhD, I'm a master's degree or whatever, I can understand Prabhupada, I can, so many things you understand, so many defects. If one is arrogant and thinks that he understood the mind of the pure devotee, this is very dangerous, very dangerous. I've told this story once, how one disciple in Calcutta asked Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master, when he closes his eyes, what does he see? And Prabhupada rebuked the devotee, says, that you do not need to ask. So the devotee reframed the question, reformulated the question, says, Prabhupada, the pure devotee, when he closes his eyes, what does he see? And Prabhupada said, the pure devotee, when he closes his eyes, he sees the pastimes of Krishna in it manifested in his heart 24 hours a day. So this is a very exalted position. When we read Srila Prabhupada's books, this is not simply the result of some academic research or some academic knowledge. No, this is direct realization of Krishna from the pure devotee. This is very important. In 1970, when the Nectar of Devotion came out, Srila Prabhupada told a few of his senior leaders, this book is the law book of ISKCON. Nowadays, some senior leaders have concocted some laws of ISKCON in which they speak so many contradictions. Some laws of ISKCON, they can change the laws, amend the laws, so many things they are doing. But this book, Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada said, this is the law book of that society. This is the law book of our movement. One should study very carefully the message of the Acharya, the writings of the Acharya, very, very carefully. In the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, after Ramanuja's departure, there was an invasion of Sri Rangam in South India by the Muslim invaders. They came. So when the Sri Vaishnavas at Sri Rangam, the followers of Ramanuja, saw that, they took the commentary on the Sri Bhashya. The Sri Bhashya is the Vedanta Sutra commentary that had been compiled by Ramanujacharya. One of his followers and servants named Sudarshan Suri had written a commentary on the Sri Bhashya. So but in those days, they did not have books like we have here. They did not have this. They didn't have the printing. They would do this on palm leaves, manuscript, handwritten manuscript. This was like 700-800 years ago. So the Vaishnavas, to preserve that literature, that precious literature, both the Sri Bhashya and the commentary, they took that and they sent it with one great Acharya named Vedanta Deshika. He went away from Sri Rangam and took these precious books and he went and hid in Karnataka, in one place in Karnataka near the Godavari River. And then various devotees, they took the deity of Ranganath, took him out of his place in the temple, put him on a bullock cart and took him away so the Muslim invaders would not destroy the deity. So they would not be able to touch the deity. And then 1,000 Sri Vaishnavas went and confronted the army. Of course, they were all killed and slaughtered. But to preserve the teachings, to preserve their sacred book, they did these sacrifices. Why? Because they understand that these books by these great acharyas are the direct revelation from Lord Krishna, from Lord Vishnu. Not that this is simply some scholar in Sanskrit and Bengali who happened to put this together. Of course, it is very scholarly, but these are direct revelations from Krishna through his pure devotee. Very important point, because some people now we see, some people are so arrogant and so foolish as to criticize Srila Prabhupada. One such arrogant person even made a statement that Prabhupada was his kind of acharya and I'm my kind of acharya. I am my own acharya. Some statement like that. Arrogance, complete arrogance. Very dangerous. Another one of these fellows, so-called educated PhD, made a statement that Prabhupada exceeded his authority. Oh, you're now being such a big acharya that you can criticize your guru? You can criticize the Sampradaya Acharya? Just see the foolishness. They find fault with Prabhupada. And ultimately, this will be their fall down. This will be their demise spiritually. Very dangerous position. We were reading last week. Last week, we were reading that lecture from Srila Prabhupada on March 10th, 1972, in a room conversation in Vrindavan, where Srila Prabhupada says, the Acharya is as good as I am. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27. Krishna says, Nava manina karichet, never neglect him. Namartya buddhya suyeta, never be envious of the Acharya, thinking him as anything of this material world. Therefore, Acharya's position is as good as Krishna. Sakshadaritvena samasta shastra. Acharya is always cautious that he may not be subject to criticism. But one who criticizes the Acharya, he becomes immediately offender. Because he's playing the part of Acharya, he plays as far as possible. But sometime for preaching work, he might have to do something which is not consistent. But if he's criticized, then that man who criticized, he becomes, of course, he must be Acharya, not a bogus. Ordinary man cannot transgress the laws. But Krishna and his representative Acharya might be sometimes seen that he has transgressed. Therefore, Krishna says, Acharya mam vijanayan. Vaishnavira kriya mudra vignaya na bhujaya. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vaishnava Acharya, his activities is not understood even by the wisest man. Vaishnavira kriya mudra vignaya na bhujaya. Brahmani upasamasrayam. Acharya Guru is completely surrendered to Krishna. He has taken shelter of Krishna, being completely freed from all material affection. So this is a very important point, because now we see so many people, they analyze some of Srila Prabhupada's controversial statements about social issues, about women's position, explaining the Vedic system, explaining the proper understanding of marriage, in so many different situations. And some people who have been indoctrinated by the Western materialistic philosophy, they look at that and they find fault with Prabhupada. The fault is not with Prabhupada. The fault is with the students who do not accept. In 1974, Guru Kripa and myself were in Hawaii. and one senior disciple was having problems, difficulties. So Srila Prabhupada was at the airport and he gave a very heavy lecture when he came there, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can be hard as a thunderbolt and as soft as a rose. And Prabhupada was criticizing the idea of somebody in the renounced order of life stealing money from the temple and engaging in illicit activities. So later on, when we got in the car, Prabhupada said, "Why do you think I've been successful?" So Guru Kripa says, "Well, you're a pure devotee, you're a Mahabhagavat." And I said, "Well, Prabhupada, you're a Shakti Vaishnava." Prabhupada says, no. The Prabhupada says, "Because I did not engage in this illicit sex business and all this nonsense. That's why I'm successful." Prabhupada says, "I tell my disciples, you chant 16 rounds, follow these principles, and you will go back to Godhead in this life." He says, "But they don't do." When Prabhupada put his hand up, he says, "What can I do? I give them the instruction, they do not follow." So this is an important point, because we see there are some disciples who have got this rebellious attitude, especially some of these educated people, some of these so-called PhDs and master degrees. They start to find fault with Prabhupada. "Oh, Prabhupada said this is not according to our understanding or according to the historical understanding of such and such situation." And this is not the way to understand a pure devotee. We see in the Padma Purana, Prabhupada used to quote, "Gurushu naramati." If you think that the spiritual master, the self-realized Acharya, is like an ordinary man, like a conditioned soul, yasyatma, this is naraki, you're a naraki, you're going down to the lower planets. This is a very dangerous position, especially for a disciple who's taken the vow to accept Prabhupada, to accept the instruction, to follow the instruction, but they become so educated and so big that have the audacity to criticize the Acharya. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasad. We sing this every day, that if one has the mercy of the spiritual master, he will get the mercy of Krishna. Bhagavat prasad. Yasya aprasadat nagati kutopi. If one displeases the spiritual master, then one does not know where he is. We've practically seen in Prabhupada's presence one such over-intelligent so-called disciple who brought a television in Prabhupada's room, trying to prove to him that somebody went to the moon or somebody went to some other planet. He says, "Just see." Prabhupada says, according to Bhagavad-gītā, they cannot go there. You cannot go to another planet without the suitable body. You cannot go artificially. Artificially, you may think you are going, you are not reaching there. And the disciple was so bewildered, he left. He blooped. So those people that criticize Srila Prabhupada, find fault with Prabhupada, or find fault with Prabhupada's arrangements for his movement, they're in big, precarious position, very dangerous position. They should immediately stop their speculation and their nonsense. Immediately. Very important point. So we'll open the discussion. I've opened my mouth too long. Oh, by the way, before I have to correct Viśvakarmā Prabhu, this thing about his grace, the word is disgrace would probably be more appropriate to me for my lowly self. I understand his point, but it's best that you don't use those terms for me. Hare Krishna. So we can have discussion, comments, remarks, admonitions, chastisements.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your brilliant explanation of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And it certainly is inspiring for us to have a taste of what we would say is the original style of our philosophy, which was to repeat the words of our spiritual master, not that people currently speculate on Krishna and Krishna's pastimes and jump ahead. I wanted to mention before we take our questions, I see we have a few people with questions, and we'll certainly get to them, that here in the purport, Prabhupada makes some very profound statements which can give us real insight into our condition as spirit souls. He says, Prabhupada says, while exploiting, it's on page 370 in the middle of the purport, while exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. So here we get an insight that there is the material mind and the material intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the illusion of influence of material illusion, thinks I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he's liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. So I get practical experience of that when I'm dealing with a lot of the bhaktas that we are trying to speak to about Krishna consciousness here in our area, or our local area. They're preoccupied with who they are. So everything is I, me, and mine. I remember when I was at the University of Toronto in 1970. This is one of my colleagues. I remember when I used to play hockey for the St. Mike's Junior B team. I remember when I went to UCLA and got my PhD. I remember all these mundane things in my life, which demonstrate what Prabhupada is explaining here as this forgetfulness of the spiritual mind and intelligence of the living entity. That the living entity is preoccupied with their own false sense of identity, and therefore it's manifest in their speech. All they do is talk nonsense. Prajalpa niyamagraha. This constant false ego explanation of who they are and how great they are. And this just goes on and on and on. A lot of people on the mundane platform, they spend their time talking about their family. Seems to be, especially here at this time, at Christmas time, that people just spend their time discussing family. Oh, my sister, my brother, my kids. It's a complete absorption in mundane life. So the Krishna conscious philosophy is to turn ourselves not away from the concern that we have for family, or turn away from the way things are in this world, but to actually transcend that by constant absorption in the Krishna conscious process. So it's a reorientation from material mind and material intelligence to spiritual mind. For example, if you chant your rounds every day, which everyone is who is a Prabhupada disciple is committed to chanting their rounds. Well, chanting your rounds does take approximately 2 hours. of focus. So that is a part of the purification process. In other words, you're not thinking about I, me, and mine. You're not thinking about your family. You're not thinking about what Christmas presents you're going to be buying, or this, how much money I'm going to make today. You're thinking about Kṛṣṇa by chanting the holy name. So chanting is a key to the purification process, to develop the spiritual mind and intelligence of a person. Now, along with that, we have so many, if you divide the day, the 24 hours, down into different sections, you have so many hours for your sleeping. Then you have so many hours for your eating or your food preparation. You have so many hours for doing work and business and other administrative activities that you have to perform. So these activities have to be dovetailed in the service of Kṛṣṇa. And by doing this, then your spiritual senses become aroused, not your mundane senses. And along with that, as Yaśodā-nandana commented in the class this morning, we also are compelled to make an effort to follow the 4 regulated principles. Very important, because no intoxications, no meat eating, including fish and eggs, no gambling. Nowadays, gambling is becoming the biggest disease on the earth. If you watch these sporting events that they have, everything is gambling. Everybody is gambling. It's proliferated into every phone. Nowadays, they have all these companies who have made great inroads into the modern media streams with their gambling apps. And people are gambling from minute to minute. In other words, for example, a person comes up to the bat in a baseball game. So now, Yaśodā, this is what they do. You can bet on the batting sequence of the individual, whether or not they'll hit the ball or not. It's like down to individual detailed aspects of some sporting event. I've never seen these applications myself, but it's been explained to me how this operates. So gambling is completely out of control. Illicit sex life, the standards by which people are raised now in terms of sex life are much different even than 30 or 40 years ago. Now it's completely whimsical. And it's also very degraded. Nowadays, they're teaching the kids in school that you can make a choice on what gender you are. Gender selection. And that leads to all kinds of degraded promiscuity. People don't realize what that means, how degraded, how intrinsically degraded the human population is becoming. As far as meat eating, it's just raging on without any hesitation by anybody or discrimination on what to eat and what not to eat. So, and then with all of this and with intoxications, like at Christmas now, everybody's thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to go visit my parents, or I'll go visit my friends. And Vinkat, what do they do when they get there? Oh, let's have a drink. Let's have a drink of alcohol. Well, not only have a drink, let's have 5 drinks. If you've ever drank, if you drink 3 or 4 or 5 drinks, you're drunk. Nowadays in Canada, all forms of intoxication are there. Of course, they haven't permitted the use of fentanyl or whatever these other drugs that they have, but at the same time, people are stoned, they're drunk, they're promiscuous, they stuff their faces with meat, and they spend their days gambling. Is that a spiritual body? No. There's no spirituality in this modern world. And then people are asking, why are there wars? Why is it that people are being killed everywhere? How about collective karma? How about an understanding of the purpose of human life, which is being lost in this degraded lifestyle of the Kali Yuga? That's what this is about. Unless people wake up to this realization that this world is going to hell, then everything will be lost in due course of time. Nowadays, there's even a threat of nuclear war. Really, very much so. It could proliferate out of the Ukrainian battlefield into Europe, and then hopefully not spread throughout the world, because these powers, these great powers, political powers, governments, are at odds with each other over I'm not sure what. What are they trying to achieve? It's complete madness. So for us, we spend our time studying the books. So during getting back to what I was saying, so throughout the day, we have our schedule. Like every day here in the center, here in Hamilton, we go to the kitchen and we have to do the cut up, and we have to clean the dishes, and we have to prepare the prasadam for the deities, and then we have to distribute the prasadam. So that takes time. That's a good service. And then we might have phone calls. We have to call people to discuss our plans for spreading Krishna consciousness and how we're going to become organized. So that's a good use of time. We have to chant our rounds. We have to read the books. We have to spend some time like that. So this is the idea, to use our spiritual mind and spiritual intelligence 24 hours a day and elevate ourselves out of the conditioned life that we're currently in. We're situated in, because the Kali Yuga, everyone, is advancing at a very rapid pace. And we're trying somehow or other to check it with the introduction of Krishna consciousness by our spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. Vinkat, who had a question? Was it Ulysses had a question?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Bhakta Ulysses Prabhu has a question.
Bhakta Ulysses, our friend in Mexico on his farm. Please come forward and give us a question.
Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. My question is, with the modern technology, we can do so many things. Like there's air conditioning, cooling fans, self-driving cars, internet, all these machines. There are so many machines that make life very comfortable. But God instead wants persons to work as his servants. He won't use a mechanical fan, but instead he wants a servant to manually fan him. There's cow milking machines, but he instead prefers milking by hand. So why doesn't God just make sophisticated machines like we see today? What is the need of all these superior energy, the living entities? They fall down, they get addicted to gambling, drugs, and sex. So what is the purpose of free will? Thank you.
Yaśodā-nandana, please, if you could answer that.
Prabhu, you're on
Microphone.
mute.
God did not create the machines. The machines were created by men for various purposes to try to make life allegedly more comfortable, but then they become more entangled. Just like they've invented all these cars and airplanes and everything, then they figure out, oh, there's so much pollution. Yeah, because this is not the natural way of living. This is a big problem. This modern civilization is not a sustainable economic model. Therefore, in the Vedic system, everything is based on agriculture. Even in India, even in most of India, in the villages, everything is very simple. This whole civilization of running with cars and airplanes and computers, it may be very convenient, but it has a lot of downside, a lot of problems. Prabhupada used to recommend that devotees should get some land, some cows, grow some food, grow some crops, grow some flowers. This is a natural way of living. Prabhupada was in Nellore in 1976. And we took a morning walk one time just outside of the place where we're living. And there was a man that was living there with his wife and his two small children. And he had a little hut, a very small hut. All the walls outside and inside were with cow dung. And he had a thatched roof with some simple grass there. And the man paid his obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada gave his pranams back. Then Prabhupada looked inside the house. And Prabhupada says that this is very advanced living in the mode of goodness. And devotees were looking at the hut and looking at the cow dung walls thinking, oh, because most Americans or Westerners would not be able to live like that. So this is the difference between life in the mode of goodness, simple life with land, cows, crops, growing fruits and grains, flowers. This is the simple thing. As far as all these modern conveniences, this is not natural. It takes so much energy for the purpose of what? Sense gratification. It may be convenient, but it creates so many problems. Whereas a natural life based on natural products is the actual simple way for human beings. If you look in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapters 16, 17, 18, there's a lot of description of the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira and Maharaj Parikshit and how everything was flourishing because of that simple, basic, nice Varnashram way that they were living. Of course, in Kali Yuga, it's very difficult because everything is upside down. The whole society is, the priorities are all disturbed. But the simple, basic fundamental of growing crops and simple life, like we have a devotee friend in Italy, and he grows, he doesn't have a very large farm, but every square inch of his property, him and his wife, they're growing tomatoes, bell peppers, potatoes, so many things there. So everybody can grow some food. Even if it's a little bit, that's fine. Just grow some food. Offer it to Krishna like that. I hope that helps. Hare Krishna. You have another question, Ulysses?
Hare Krishna. Yes, related. So we can see that ordinary scientists, they make these machines that are, like you mentioned, they're not sustainable, like a mechanical fan. But God is certainly most intelligent, so he could easily make machines that are better than these machines done today by the modern human. So why does he create living entities and all this rather than making just some nice machines?
Well, it's not God's job to create machines. These machines were invented because of a desire for sense gratification. The original machines in India were the bullock cart and very simple mode of transportation, mode of helping with agriculture. As far as why God did not create better machines, well, that's not God's job. Human being desires, and God permits it. God allows it. Krishna allows it. But that's not the preferable way of conducting agriculture and like that. Why would God create a better machine? I don't follow the logic.
Yes, Prabhu.
Do you understand my point?
I wanted to make a comment further that Krishna explains that this body is a machine made of material energy, but the real driving force of the body is the spirit soul. So above the material machine is the spiritual life force that's present in the human being, which is the highest form of life on this planet. So the real problem is the misuse of the material body for material development, material sense gratification. Like you said, Ulysses, they're creating these machines to facilitate what machine? The machine of the material body. That's what it is. That's an illusion. We're not these bodies. We live in a city of 9 gates. The 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the 2 ears, the mouth, the anus, and the genital. This is the city of 9 gates. And the spirit soul resides in this city. And his job is not to build machines to service the material body. They build all these buildings. Everything is moving under, for example, Prabhupada explains this. Everything is moving under the principle of sex attraction in the material world. Do you follow that? Why is it that everything is? Because that's what they think is the way you can enjoy life. Oh, if I have sex, I'll be happy. What's the happiness in sex? The sex life is so temporary, so superficial, but they put so much energy into building all these extravagant facilities to enjoy sex life. Nowadays, I was just looking at a YouTube show. It's coming out that these big people, all these so-called powerful, rich people that were going to this island that was created by this fellow from America called, I don't know his first name, but it's Epstein, I believe it is. And now people are coming out and revealing who the people that went to the island are. They've got videos of them. So it could be members of the so-called royal family. It could be Bill Clinton. It could be this person, that person, Bill Gates. These people, if you just look at this, you see that by their association, they're showing birds of a feather flocking together. Why were they around Epstein when all his whole business was prostitution? Because that was their main focus. So these machines, It's not a question of why they're built. These machines are built by living entities to facilitate their sense gratification. That's what it's about. And primarily for men, it's sex life. Every man is thinking, oh, I'll get a beautiful woman, and then through that association, I'll enjoy my life. But in order to do that, you have to sustain the woman. You have to get a car. You have to have a house. You have to have facility. You have to make money. You have to take them on dates. You have to take them for dinner. You have to do all these things to keep up with keeping them happy, so-called happy. That's the illusion, Ulysses. It's not the machines that are created by the living entities to enjoy this material world. It's the machine of the material body and its function to liberate you out of this conditioned state by practicing bhakti yoga. That's why it's very important that everybody chant their rounds. It's not an option. This is not an option. This is a fact. This demoniac mentality of the modern world is destroying everything. And that's our problem. We're at war with Maya, not worried about what machines that we have, but we're worried about how we use our machine. First of all, you have to save yourself, Ulysses. That's the Prabhupada gave us that instruction. If you can save yourself, then you're in a position to help others. But if you can't save yourself, how can you save others? It's like Prabhupada said on a morning walk with me. There was a controversy in Toronto that had arisen in all the temples by one of our godbrothers, Tamal Krishna Goswami, at the time. He's since passed away. He died in a horrific car accident leaving Mayapur many years ago. I think it was 15 or 18 years ago, believe it or not, how fast time flies. But at any rate, he was saying that if you get married, it's a fallen condition. And everyone should stay single. All the men shouldn't get married, because if they do, they've fallen down. So I asked Prabhupada on a morning walk. I was afraid to ask Prabhupada questions. I know Yaśodā was of the same frame of mind, like, because you would show how stupid you were. In front of the pure devotee, you ask a question. If it's a stupid question, then you look dumb. Now, but I had something on my mind. At the time I was still a brahmachari, and we took Prabhupada out on a walk in Toronto on the beaches. And I allowed everybody to come on the walk. Because in a lot of situations, when I went to India, you were picked. Oh, you can go to the walk, but you can't go, you can't go, like that. They were the so-called leaders at the time were selecting people who was allowed to go on the walk, who wasn't allowed to go on the walk. So it was a great privilege. In Toronto, I said, everybody can go on the walk. As long as you provide your own vehicle, then you come out and walk with Prabhupada and get this opportunity to be a part of his transcendental pastimes. So there was a large crowd in walking on the beach. So I was a little bit nervous. I thought, even though I was in the role where let's put it this way, I could speak up or I could present, I was still very cautious to say a word. But then finally I thought, okay, I'm going to ask Prabhupada the question. Because someone had approached me to get married at the time, and it was on my mind. I was thinking, I'm going to fall down. If I get married, I'm going to fall down. And so I asked Prabhupada, I said, Srila Prabhupada, it's said in our movement that if you get married, it's considered to be a fall down. And Prabhupada looked at me. We stopped. It was a big crowd around us. So we were all there and everybody. Now, when you went with Prabhupada, whatever he said, everybody would be like this. They'd be glued to the word, every word that was coming out of his mouth. Trust me on that, Ulysses. glued to every word Prabhupada was going to say. So I come up, I ask him the question, and then Prabhupada looks at me and he says, where is the question of fall down when you're already fallen? That was it. So that destroyed the philosophy of Tamal Krishna's bogus preaching, that if you're falling down, if you get married, you're falling down. When Prabhupada's saying, really, it's not about being married or being single or being a sannyasi. It's about being Krishna conscious, becoming a pure devotee by chanting your rounds, by following the regulated principles, by fixing your mind on your devotional service, by dedicating your life to the Sankirtan mission, Ulysses, dedicating your time, your energy, your entire life. Prabhupada would tell us, oh, you only have one life, so just give it to Krishna. I used to think, geez, that's quite the commitment, because everything was about your life. And you're going, Prabhupada's saying, well, when you're 22 years old, and he goes, okay, just give this one life at 22, give your whole life, 60 years, just invest the next 60 years of your time in Krishna consciousness and Krishna service, and then you'll go back to Godhead. And I would think, gee, that's a long time. Now I'm 75. Time flies. Soon you'll be finished. So many, we just had this week, one of our God sisters in New Vrindavan. She's originally from Toronto temple, and she was, how can I say, taken away in the politics of the GBC years ago. This Kirtananda fellow, Keith Ham, he was going around to all the different temples and trying to, he would make people disciples and then he'd rip them off and take them to New Vrindavan. You cultivate a person in your local area and he'd come and steal them. Oh, we need you in New Vrindavan. Anyway, she moved there. And this week she passed away after 40 years of being in New Vrindavan. She was a teacher there. She was a good teacher. She wasn't involved in any of the, how can I say, nefarious activities of some. And it's quite stunning. Here we also have this Narayan Prabhu. He's a devotee. He also has the nickname Viśvakarmā that Prabhupada gave him. And he's on the last legs of his life. He's just at home with his children. They sent him home from the hospital to spend his last few days with them. So the point that I'm making is that this journey goes very quickly. It's illusion to think that you're going to be young all the time. No. Birth and death are the reality of this material world, and they're affecting everyone. So many people dying. I look at the news, you see who died. Oh, this person died. He was 65. Oh, this person died. And then you look at the age. Oh, 58. This person, it's a lot of musicians that I know. There's famous musicians from Canada called The Band. They're from Toronto here. And the fellow Robbie Robertson, he's, we grew up watching these people become international stars. Well, I was looking at a video of them briefly, and at the end it was saying, oh, this person in the band is dead. This one is dead. He died at 52. This one died at 65. This one died at 61. So death is all the time. It's coming to us at every moment. So the whole thing is Dedicate your entire life, Ulysses. How old are you, by the way? How old are you? Put your mic on.
43 or something like that.
Okay, so you're still young. Not that young. You look young, but when I was 43, I felt I was old. But when you become 75, then you know you are old. Like Prabhupada would say this on his tapes. He would say, I'm an old man. I'm 73. I could die at any moment. So this is an important point for all of us to know that we have a great mission that we have to follow. Go ahead, Prabhu. Gian Petro Bortolon, please.
Oh, thank you. My respectful obeisances to everyone. Now, I wanted only puntualize that for the Krishna Seva, Srila Prabhupada says, we are not against the machines. We can use if they help us in our Seva. So even if he prefer to see devotees living a simple life, but at the same time, if there's not enough workers, I mean, the devotee can use a machine to help himself in the seva to produce grain and what is that then go help the society or the temple or the family or so on. But as you said, I agree perfectly that that the first thing we have to think is to become fully Krishna conscious, because death can come any moment. So that's my realization. Thank you very much.
Venkat, please. And we're going to wrap up the class. I see we're at 11:30. Venkat, please.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I just on the same note, I wanted to share this quote. I believe it's originally from the Mahabharata, but it's also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7. Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment, but a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. So Yamaraj once asked Maharaj Yudhishthira, what is the most wonderful thing within this world? And this was his reply. Everyone has to die because everyone is fully under the control of material nature. Yet everyone thinks that he is independent, that whatever he likes he can do, that he will never meet death but live forever, and so on. So-called scientists are making various plans by which living entities in the future can live forever. But while they are thus pursuing such scientific knowledge, Yamaraj, in due course of time, will take them away from their business of so-called research. I mean, we can see, scientists, they're trying to become immortal. They openly say it, we're about to discover the secret to aging. It's all delusion. I just wanted to share this quote.
Excellent. Very, very, very nice quote. And thank you so much. And we'll just wrap up the class by a few final announcements. Don't forget that tomorrow at 10 a.m. our time, that's Eastern Standard Time, we'll be having the Srimad Bhagavatam class. And also on Wednesday next week, Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're marching through the Chaitanya Charitamrita. These books are a gift, a blessing from our pure devotee, from the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, and by us all associating, Guru, Shastra, Sadhu, by this association with each other, we are getting, we are getting the opportunity to become fixed up in the process of devotional service. So as the weeks go forward, as we march together, then our strength, it is our goal that we become stronger spiritually That's the purpose of this. To become, that's the term that you use. You get fixed up, not fixed down. You become stronger in your devotional practice, not weaker. Because Maya is always attacking us. So we all personally have our own struggles we have to go through each day. I mean, these classes are very, very short, 1.5 hours. But we have a lot to do throughout the week. There's 24 hours in a day. So these classes, and we're inviting other people to join us so that we can expand this army of devotees to spread the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya. So thank you again, everyone, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. If you could play the Kirtan now, we'll end up the class. Hari Hari, Hari Hari, Hari Hari, Hari Hari Bo.
Shri Guru Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Viśvakarmā Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha
Vipasindavyevacha
Patitanam
Itanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo, everybody, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Hari Haribo. Haribo. Thank you, everyone. Ecstatic, blissful.
Jai Hare Krishna.
Atmamasi